Welcome back to She's All Over the Place. I am so excited to have you here. And I had the wonderful opportunity to cover the Tribeca Film Festival. And I have a director on with me today, Zach Ingrasci. He is the director of the new film documentary titled This Is Not Financial Advice. And as always, this episode is not financial advice. This is just educational, fun, caring, and sharing, and we're going to dive right in. Zach has directed and made multiple films that have been on Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, and the list goes on. You can check the show notes below to get a full list and tune in more. He is the co-founder of Optimist, and we are going to talk today about his new documentary that premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival 2023. Zach, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Kind of riding off a high of being at Tribeca and finally getting to show this film to the world.
Oh, let's start there. So, where is it going to be? How is everyone going to see it, and when?
Right. We just had the world premiere at Tribeca to a sold out screening of like 500 people. And after having released films and during the pandemic, I think that's like really rewarding for filmmakers now because so much of what we had to do was like these virtual releases. But, getting to sit in a room and actually have people laugh at your film and get to feel that energy was huge. So from there, we're kind of in discussions right now with distribution options. So it's still a little TBD, but we'll definitely be doing kind of a limited theatrical run and then hopefully more soon on exactly where you'll be able to see it.
Sounds good. We'll keep everyone listening, tuned in, and updated. So, circling around to the root of you as an artist, when did you start filmmaking and why?
Yeah. Oh man, it's a good question. It was very much accidental. I think both Chris and my co-director Chris Temple, who made this film and all these other films with me, and co-founded Optimist, our production company. We both were studying economics in college and have never really taken film classes. I took like one small film class in high school, but we accidentally during our sophomore year of college made this short documentary or this documentary called Living on $1, where we were living under $1 a day for 2 months in rural Guatemala. And that ended up hitting Netflix and raising $2 million for this community where we were filming. And we realized that documentary is this intersection of creativity and also a spark to really get people to potentially get interested or involved in these issues that we really cared about. We were studying economic development, so how people around the world, how the world develops, and so these are issues that we like nerded out about, but didn't really have a lot of ways to talk about. And then film just became that conduit. And so fast forward 10 years later, now I do identify as a filmmaker. I love documentaries. We've been making, I think this is our fourth feature documentary. And yeah, it was really wonderful to be able to premiere our new one at Tribeca.
Wow, congratulations. It sounds so aspirational for the person tuning in. We have a lot of younger folks listening. And, I know as creators, we want, and as humans, we want to have that connection of why and feel purposeful. And what I'm just rippling of what I'm hearing you saying is, people are interested and they want to partake because it's
Mm.
something that they care about. And you can interweave your passion of, well, what you went to school for, but creativity and make a mark in the world, and doing it through documentaries. I mean, it just opens up my mind to a whole new possibilities. Really, really neat.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
How cool.
it's really kind of surprised us. We've almost raised over $90 million for the communities where we film and nonprofits that work in those communities over the last 10 years. And like, I never knew that documentaries could be such a catalyst, I think, for people to get involved and do something about these issues. I think docs are really good at, they're not the best sometimes at the deep kind of technical information side, but they always are able to touch us in our hearts. And that's what films are so good at, is really kind of pulling us in emotionally to these issues. And then if we can capitalize on like those 10-15 minutes that we're all like so invested with an impact campaign or ways to get involved or ways to learn more, it can be really effective at getting people involved. So that's what we do at Optimist with every film that we make. We also have an impact campaign or a way that someone can get involved or learn more or take action. So um, it's been a cool journey and a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot as well. And it sounds like, it takes a team effort and to have, other people be involved. So you mentioned Chris has been with you on all your projects thus far.
Yeah, my co-director Chris Temple. We actually met because we were on the same like hallway in our dormitory in college, our freshman year. So we started out just as friends, and then had this kind of wild summer adventure that
Mm.
eventually became our first film.
Wonderful, wonderful. And diving in to this is not financial advice. You cover different subjects. How did you find them, or how did they find you to be participants in the documentary?
Right. I mean, so this film, this is not financial advice. It follows four different kind of regular investors in the U.S. who navigate the last kind of roller coaster of the last 2 years, 3 years. Um, the kind of central participant of the film, subject of the film, is this guy named Glauber Contasoto, or Pro is his nickname, or also known as the Dogecoin millionaire. And we found him really on just early on via Twitter, actually. And this was before he was a full millionaire. And we had a quick Skype with him. And I think as soon as we met him, we were like, wow, this guy has a really interesting story. He's an immigrant to the United States. He had a really difficult past, trying to find stable jobs, and he kind of was like in this kind of grind and difficult place. And then he YOLO'd all of his money on Dogecoin, and that went up to ultimately to $3 million during our filming time, and then came crashing down. So you follow this roller coaster ride, really, of his experience investing, and then we also kind of pop off to three other subjects, who kind of are a diverse look at what investors are in America.
Yeah, I loved that you had his mom in the film, and
Yeah.
she was so compassionate and graceful and loving, and it was really intimate and really raw and real to see, and a lot of people can relate. And then it's also eye-opening of how some people live and how some people don't get a fair shot because of his circumstances of not having, legal papers to be able to work and sustain his job, and then keep getting, fired over and over. Yeah, so it was really impactful. I personally like the quality of the film. It was really well done. What did you shoot on?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always good to hear that people like our cinematography and kind of approach. We shot on C500 Mark IIs, which are these like great versatile cameras. I mean, what's amazing now is like there's so many cameras that you can just make look so cinematic. We shot on these Zeiss Prime lenses.
Mm,
They give it that extra kind of sharp look, and
yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I think we um just try and embed ourselves as much as possible. The film is kind of driven by these verite moments with Pro, with Sanai, with Reyes, with Kayla, are the four different subjects. And it's funny because Pro ended up actually living just literally 2 blocks down from my fiance, and so I'd walk from his house over to Pro's house, and there'd be moments where Pro would just like leave the front door unlocked so that we could come in and like film him waking up, like these really kind of intimate moments that we were so grateful that kind of Pro let us into his life in such a intimate way. And it was really hundreds of hours of footage, and even more hours of editing this down over 2 years to make it ultimately into, I think, an 86-minute film.
2 years, 2 years. So, do you know how many shoot dates are within that 2 years or
Oh my
no?
gosh, like so many. That is such a good. I should look actually. I can't even. I'm not even sure. But making documentaries is uh is kind of a crazy process. Like, people don't quite realize, I think, the amount of filming you do, and even the number of people that ultimately don't end up in the film, because you kind of make a film 3 times, right? You like think up this idea and you're like, yeah, we're making a film about investing, and like this film even started out with the GameStop stuff. Ultimately, the film, I think, says GameStop maybe 1 time in it, but by the time we met, once we started shooting and once we met Pro and these 3 other people, we were like, oh, there's a much deeper story here about kind of our relationship to money, like what these kind of anxieties and fears and ambition that motivates our relationship to money. And I think
Yeah.
ultimately that's what we were hoping to talk about in this film through the stories of these 4 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how it paralyzes us. I love the intimate moment with Kayla, and she's like talking to a group of people, and she's like, "Who talks to you about financial advice, or who talks to you about finances?" And it's kind of unless you go to school for it, certain people just are numbing to it. I mean, I know there are different classes you can take to learn about finances, but some people talk about it, but if it's not your world, there are many people, obviously, that don't talk about it. And so it really breaks down in a way of, this blanket of going into the stock market and, this is the one person or this is how it is, and showing variations of ways of how new people can have opportunities. And I loved how you brought Kayla into it and gave that different spirit with her energy, and how because when I was a kid, I remember, it was like, a man's world, putting on a suit and
Mm-hmm.
pants, or, it's like you have a career or get married. And it's like, now you can do both, but yeah, it's still difficult, but it's not so cut and dry like either or. And there's new educational tools like Instagram, the TikTokers, the influencers to really learn. So a lot of people really like that. So yeah, I liked
Yeah,
I liked
I appreciate that you like Kayla, because we felt like Kayla had to be part of this, because I was, at the time, Chris and I, we were learning most of our investing advice from TikTok, right? And like that's where 80% of young people get their investing advice is from TikTok, from social media. Um and in some ways it's so cool. I mean, you can, if in the film we have Kayla kind of explain a bull, like where the terms bull market comes from, versus bear market. And I sat there watching this film at Tribeca next to Josh Brown or some of these other, huge names in finance, and a few of them were like, oh, I never even knew that, right? And I think what TikTokers do so well is break down some of these really complex concepts into something that's totally understandable. And Kayla especially, we were watching her stuff and we're like, oh, this is a really important thing to talk about, because really this rise of financial advice on social media is been really interesting. In some ways, it's so great in the sense that it's kind of democratizing financial advice or information or learning. But then there's, of course, this double-edged sword side of it, right? Like, there are realities about the algorithm of social media, and this attention economy, and this kind of expectation that everything is positive even when it's not. So it, like, that really having Kayla, who kind of represented that social media side, and eventually Pro, who gets into that game as well, I think ultimately is something we should all think about. And to be honest, I mean, it's crazy that we don't learn about these basic stuff in school. Like, I studied economics in college at like a fancy liberal arts school, and
Where?
Claremont McKenna College in Los Angeles.
Hmm, hmm.
And I graduated college and I didn't even realize that when you put money in your Roth IRA, my retirement account, I didn't know you actually had to invest that money. Like you have to allocate it somewhere. And like if I didn't learn that studying economics in college, then what are other people like not, don't know? What don't other people know about kind of basic skills that
Yeah.
ultimately set us up for for success? And so
Hmm.
it's something that I think we've become really passionate about now making this film.
Yeah, and I love how now in 2023, we're incorporating art, science, tech, creativity with finance and
Hmm.
making it in a fun way. Like you mentioned in the documentary, when Doge was, created, it was a meme. It was a funny thing, and a lot of beautiful things. When I was watching it, I felt like a lot of beautiful things come from having fun with your friends, come from a slip up. All these genius things come from just playing and having fun. That's why a lot of Google and different companies, they have rooms now, where you just have think time,
Mm-hmm.
or play time. And so that's really really important. And you even mentioned, you hit the all the marks, because in addition to TikTok, podcast is where, independent podcasters, it's where people are going to for this resourceful information for free. And I saw, one of your subjects, what participants was, a podcaster. So how did you find some of these financial experts on Wall Street, to partake in the documentary?
Yeah, there. We were along this ride with Pro and Rays and Snai and Kayla, and uh, Pro was getting a lot of media attention from like New York Times, from podcasters, from kind of big YouTubers like Graham Stephan or Andre or Meet Kevin. So some of that came naturally through their experiences, and then also there were some financial kind of experts that we wanted to bring in who you see throughout the film to talk about kind of different bigger kind of societal issues. And one of them is this guy named Morgan Housel who wrote a book called The Psychology of Money. And it was kind of this, it allowed us to think deeper about, why we make these financial decisions and how all of us have kind of different risk tolerances and approaches to how we want to invest. And so it was really interesting to get to talk to him and have some of these people be a part of the film. Um, and a lot of it is just kind of outreach via social media or Twitter or stuff. But we were really excited when they were willing to kind of be on camera and be part of this story.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. You mentioned, something, and it made it come back up for like, the tech heads. You're shooting so much content. So how are you saving it? Where do you save all this content? Like, you have to back up your backup and back up the backup. Like how do you keep
Yeah.
it all organized?
Oh man, we have these hard drives. I think we shot around like 50 terabytes of footage, right? So a huge amount of footage, but we have, I think, two different backups, always in different locations. The reality is making these films takes an entire team. So we had an incredible editing team, two kind of lead editors who worked with us throughout the process, and a finishing editor, and a number of assistant editors, and all were fabulous. And honestly, I we yeah, just the organization of footage alone, or archival, or kind of all of these different elements that we were bringing into the film, and the producers, our producing team, like there's a whole team behind the scenes, right? It's not just me and Chris, but um,
When you
it's
first started,
quite the
it
process.
was.
Yeah, yeah. Initially, it was our first film. I think we made on like $6,000 that ended up on Netflix, and now like yeah, the budgets are not $6,000. That was being a poor student who was able to beg for a sound designer to come and help us finish the film and stuff. But we would not have been able to start without the generosity of the community. I think in general, the documentary community is this kind of like nice like little haven outside of the kind of traditional entertainment world in some ways. So it's fun to kind of be a part of that. There's a lot of really wonderful and generous filmmakers.
And what was the budget for this project?
Yeah, the budget was almost $1 million for the film. So if just because of the number of storylines we had to film, the kind of like the speed at which we were trying to make sure that this film came out, um, it sounds like a ton, but it's a pretty kind of normal budget for like a high end feature documentary at this point.
It looks great. Just when the opening's coming, and I love the Optimist coin, yeah,
Thank
and
you.
the logo. I mean, yo, I'm like, this is fresh. It's so clean. It's so clean. Oh, the pro, he gives me like Jack Harlow vibes, kind of. Does that come up ever? Because he's like into music and
Yeah,
his
he
vibe.
loves music. Like Pro is such a character. I mean, you'll see, people will see in the film. I wish they could all just see it right now, but it's um he's kind of the ideal documentary subject. In some ways, he's just so open. And you might, when you're watching, you're like, sometimes you're like, why is he letting you film this? Like, money is such a personal issue, and Pro is so kind of in some ways brave to share that so openly. All the people in this film are. And that sometimes you're just like, Pro, I want to shake you, right? Especially in moments when you're like, why don't you just sell a little bit of this money uh, to make sure that you're okay? Because the crazy thing was, there's this one moment in the film, and and a lot of people might remember this moment. It's when Elon Musk was on Saturday Night Live, and Doge was at its all-time high, and um, I'm sitting there and filming Pro in his tiny, I think like 200-foot square apartment, like 200 square foot apartment, which is so small. I can't even describe how small this is. Just like, it's a room with a tiny kitchen and a bathroom. And I know that Pro's credit cards had just been like canceled. His account was maybe at like $200 in cash, but he was worth, almost at the height of that, almost $3 million in Dogecoin. And I was just like, Pro, why don't you just sell like a little bit of it? But I think there's a number of reasons why Pro wasn't selling at the time. One was uh, just this kind of responsibility to the community, where he didn't want to let people down. He really did believe um, that Dogecoin was gonna keep going up, and he wanted to make sure that his family was set, and he could have reached these dreams of becoming, having a rap label, and kind of these ambitions that were really, that he still has. And yet it was just like, man, there's this scene with his friends who are just like trying to, they're even saying it like, Pro, why don't you just sell a little bit? So yeah, it is can be, someone described the film as a financial horror film. And I was like,
Oh,
oh man, interesting. Like, yes, parts of it probably are, there is a little bit of that tension, or like that throughout the film, that keeps you watching.
yeah, I think the audience will be cheering along during those moments also, and it's so
Hmm.
neat how you just captured history in real time and you just ran with it. So
Oh,
that's so
thanks.
neat. Yeah, definitely. Before we wrap up, anything else you want to share? What do you have coming up in the near future?
Yeah, so this film, we're really excited when it finally kind of comes out for broader audiences to see. And if anyone's interested, they can follow on Instagram. It's just at Tinfa Film. This is not financial advice, the acronym Tinfa Film, or just at Optimist, which is our production company, on Instagram as well. But yeah, we've also been working on some other films. We early on actually did an NFT drop that funded a film about Ethereum and the founder Vitalik Buterin. So I've been traveling around the world for the last 2 years with Vitalik in that community. So lots to keep an eye out for.
Did Have you gone to any of the conferences where he speaks in Europe or anywhere,
Many.
and he's on stage wearing his full looks that he wears, and you film some of those?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've been all over the world with Vitalik, including Ukraine and Colombia, uh, Portugal, Berlin, Amsterdam. I mean, it's taken us all over. So I'm really excited to share that when we finally are done.
I'm excited to see it. I have about, I don't know, in one wallet, maybe over 400 NFTs on Ethereum. So,
Uh huh.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
Ethereum. Yeah, I'm all in on Ethereum. Yeah, very
Awesome.
neat. Yeah, well, congratulations to you and your partner on This Is Not Financial Advice, your new documentary. I'm very bullish, big fan. I'll be definitely sharing it with my communities. And yeah, thank you so much for joining, and you're welcome back on She's All Over the Place anytime.
Thanks for having me. It's been really great.
Definitely. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please follow Zach on all social media accounts. Share this episode with at least one person because of you, we're in the top 2% out of all known podcasts. We'll see you next week. Thanks.